5th August is the anniversary of when the state of Jammu and Kashmir was stripped of its autonomy and Article 370 of the Constitution was abrogated by an Act of Parliament. That day also marked the decision to divide the erstwhile state of Jammu and Kashmir into two territories of the Union, Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh. As the announcement was made a year ago, celebrations broke out in some parts of Jammu and Kashmir. But for others, mainly in the Kashmir Valley, it was a time for hardship, as the act of abrogation was followed by a series of indefinite security lockdowns.
वो करेंगा ये करेंगा कुछ नहीं इधर कुछ नहीं इधर बर्बादी हो गया
इन्होंने कहा क्या था कि दफा 370 हटाने के बाद यहाँ पे तरक्की होगी लेकिन हमें लग रहा है कि जो ग्राउंड लेवल पे हम देख रहे हैं वी आर फेसिंग लॉट ऑफ प्रॉब्लम्स
यहाँ पे हमें कोई काम नहीं जब से 370 हट गया तब से हमारी बहुत दिक्कतें यहाँ पे आई कोई काम नहीं रहा मोदी साहब ने हमारे साथ बहुत वादा किया मगर कुछ नहीं हुआ यहाँ पे
The entire valley was shut, internet was cut off. Kashmir Valley resembled an island, its links with the outside world severely curtailed.
5 अगस्त से हम यहाँ बंद है, फिर लॉकडाउन शुरू हुआ है, अब खत्म हो गया, कश्मीर पूरा खत्म हो गया है, काम नहीं है, कुछ नहीं है, क्या है यहाँ? यहाँ सब बैठे हुए हैं, लोग अपनी मजदूरी करता था वो बेचारा घर में बैठे हुए हैं, हम भी सुबह मैं भी दिन को 400-500 रुपया कमाता था, आज 20-25 रुपए भी बनते नहीं है.
World is seeing the lockdown like for the past 3-4 months, but we Kashmiris have been suffering. Our business is suffering for since August. हमारा business August से suffer हो रहा है.
The decision to revoke Article 370 was showcased as a means to wholly integrate the erstwhile state with the rest of India, a move that would improve business in the region. But the two lockdowns in the valley hit local businesses hard. Losses are estimated to run into thousands of crores of rupees.
I invested in this cafe that I'm running right now only in May 2019 and I only saw two months of business. I mean, you cannot even imagine the kind of debt we've gone into because of the 5th August lockdown and because of the coronavirus lockdown. We were shut from August to December. So that is 5 months of paying salaries, that is 5 months of paying our landlord a very hefty amount of rent being on a very important main road in Kashmir.
दोनों lockdowns अपनी अपनी जगह पे अलग थे. दोनों lockdowns की वजह से बिजनेस पे बहुत इफेक्ट हो गया. अगर मैं अगस्त वाले लॉकडाउन की बात करूं तो वो तो कंप्लीट शटडाउन था. उसमें एक तो हमारा फिजिकल स्टोर तो सिलवाना का फिजिकल स्टोर तो बंद ही था, साथ में हमारा जो ऑनलाइन स्टोर है वो भी कंप्लीटली बंद था क्योंकि यहाँ पे जो मोबाइल डेटा है वो बंद रखा गया और हम ना ऑनलाइन ऑपरेट कर पा रहे थे ना फिजिकल स्टोर ऑपरेट कर पा रहे थे.
आफ्टर दैट आई थिंक February 15 से February to March 15th we started picking up again. We started paying off our debts. I thought that in the next 4-5 months we'll be able to pay off our landlord also. And then 17th March को we had to shut the place again.
ऑनलाइन 2G की वजह से जो हमारा पेज था वो इनएक्टिव रहा क्योंकि हम कोई नए डिजाइन्स कोई नई चीज ऑनलाइन चढ़ा नहीं पाए. हम क्लाइंट्स को रिस्पॉन्ड नहीं कर पाए. जब आपके पास एक क्लाइंट एक कस्टमर मैसेज करता है तो दे एक्सपेक्ट कि हम उनको इंस्टेंटली रिस्पॉन्ड करें, उनकी क्वेरीज को एड्रेस करें. बट इंटरनेट पहले तो बिना इंटरनेट की वजह से हम कर नहीं पाए. फिर जब 2G स्टार्ट हुआ तो उसमें भी बहुत इश्यूज हुए. बहुत स्लो स्पीड की वजह से हम बहुत लेट रिस्पॉन्स कर पाते थे कस्टमर्स को.
We've not made money. We made money only in the 2 months last year and 1.5 months this year, and that is a total of 3 months in 365 days, and that is a huge loss to us.
Anam and Nusaiba had to figure out ways to run their businesses amid a stringent security clampdown and a pandemic that struck the entire world. But along with the pandemic, a new law came for the Union Territory, something that seemed to irk the people of the valley.
Because the whole idea behind revocation of Article 370 is domicile. They want to change the demography of Jammu and Kashmir. It has always been a Muslim majority state, and they want to reduce this majority of Muslims to a minority. It will become a Hindu majority state.
Articles 370 and 35A of the Indian Constitution gave the right to the state of Jammu and Kashmir to decide the permanent residence of the state, prohibiting a non-J&K resident from buying property and reaping the benefits that came with being a resident of the state. But on March 31st, 2020, the Ministry of Home Affairs issued an order to amend a 2010 legislation by substituting the term permanent residence with domiciles of Union Territory of J&K.
Punjabis take great pride in being Punjabis. People from Haryana take great pride in being Haryanvis, and similarly we had a certain set of identifications, certain sentiment attached with being Kashmiris. This whole game of Article 370 scrapping and introducing of the domicile law was to make that identity irrelevant. So as a Kashmiri, not just do I feel threatened by the new domicile law, but I also feel extremely disappointed that our identity is not respected. Actually, post scrapping of 370, we are all in some kind of a daze, like, we are unable to react to a lot of things. So these small things like election, bureaucracy, administration, I find them extremely redundant and irrelevant, because the larger question of our identity is an elephant in the room that not many people are willing to talk about.
The governance of the erstwhile state of Jammu and Kashmir shifted to being administered by bureaucrats in the absence of political representation. Most politicians were detained before and after the abrogation of Article 370. Most politicians have been released, many of them after months of staying under house arrest. But there is still a feeling in the valley of a political void existing in Kashmir.
Once these politicians were released from prison or from their house arrest, they typically surrendered. They never spoke, they never condemned their arrest. Even that time when National Conference leaders Dr. Farooq Saab and Umar Abdullah were arrested, 3 of their member parliaments in the parliament never spoke about the arrest of their own leaders or others from the party. So there has been a typical surrender from the regional parties before New Delhi. I don't know why, what are the secret reasons behind that, but there has been a typical surrender. But yes, there is one element of exception as of now, and that is Mehbooba Mufti Sahiba, who is still under house arrest, the only leader who is still under house arrest from the big names in politics.
Political rights are more important to every Kashmiri. Even if they have all the wealth coming to them, they won't be happy because their political rights are more important.
I can't believe it.
While on July 31st, Sajjad Lone was released from detention, a day earlier, Congress leader and former Union Minister Saifuddin Soz was allegedly stopped by the police in his house from talking to the media.
सुप्रीम कोर्ट के सामने झूठ बोला जाता है, इसको आप तो हाईलाइट कर ही सकते हैं कि सुप्रीम कोर्ट के सामने इस गवर्नमेंट ने उस गवर्नमेंट ने कहा कि
Saifuddin Soz's family had earlier appealed to the Supreme Court to release him from house arrest, citing his old age. The Jammu and Kashmir administration in court said that Soz was not detained and was free to move.
This moment I am telling you, this morning I tried to go out to meet my daughter in the neighborhood. I was not allowed. Afternoon also I tried. I was not allowed by police. And since August 5, 2019, this is the situation that I am under detention. Call it house arrest.
While Soz's detention or no detention is still being debated, Mehbooba Mufti remains the only mainstream politician officially still under detention.
I think in a democracy, it's a cause of grave concern if a leader, if a political leader, or anybody else for that matter, an individual, has not been seen in public for the past 1 year. My mother has not been seen in public since 5th August 2019.
Aspirations तो बहुत होती हैं, but हालातों की वजह से it's very uncertain actually.
In Srinagar, a young entrepreneur, Tabil, feels his business is dwindling further after the abrogation of Article 370.
With Kashmir comes add-on things as well. तो कोविड का अभी तो जब मतलब सब जगह खत्म हो जाएगा, होपफुली यहाँ पे भी खत्म हो जाएगा. बट उसके बाद क्या हमारा कश्मीर सर्टेनिटी की टुवर्ड्स जा रहा है कि नहीं, तो वो भी एक चीज़ है जो दिमाग में आती है, मतलब बडिंग एंटरप्रेन्योर्स के लिए जो कश्मीर में है.
At the line of control in Uri, most people are staying indoors because of the pandemic. But when asked about new laws after abrogation, the locals feel that the question of making ends meet is more important than any new law.
मसाइल के लिए हो जाएगा, लेकिन ये कि हमारा मेन मसला बेरोजगारी, नौकरी, बिजनेस में थोड़ा बढ़ावा होना चाहिए.
जब से सरकार ने जो फैसला लिया 370 हटाने का और उसके बाद जो 35A का मामला था, तब से आज तक जो वादे किए गए थे लोगों के साथ, तो कुछ भी लोगों को ग्राउंड लेवल पे दिखाई नहीं दिया.
A few kilometers away in Datta Mandir, a 60-year-old farmer, Sahabuddin, is happy with the benefits he has received under various government schemes.
मोदी सरकार गरीब के लिए अच्छा है, क्योंकि गरीब एक पैसा भी वो नहीं खाते, वो हमारे अकाउंट में डालता है, हमारे अकाउंट में मिल जाता है. पहले अकाउंट से बाहर आता था, वो मिलता नहीं था.
Farmer Saifuddin is content with the government's functioning, but for many people, the uncertain environment around them only brought unemployment, and those who wanted to generate jobs also met with disappointment.
The time when I opened up my restaurant, even this thing was there in my mind as well, कि मतलब I have to create an employment, unemployed youth जो यहाँ पे है, उनको थोड़ी बहुत उनका रोजगार चल जाएगा, उनकी फैमिलीज चल जाएंगी. लेकिन जब हमारे ही साथ मतलब हम ही अनसर्टन हैं, मतलब एज अ सोसाइटी यहाँ पे अनसर्टेनिटीज है, तो हम क्या एम्प्लॉयमेंट जनरेट करेंगे जब तक यहाँ सर्टेनिटी नहीं आएगी.
There have been claims of a more peaceful atmosphere in what has been labelled a new Kashmir. The figures since 5th of August 2019 currently stand as 181 militants killed in security operations, but 0 civilian deaths reported.
After the abrogation of Article 370 last year, the security forces seem to be on an overdrive against militant groups in the valley. Several militants and their commanders have been killed. In fact, just this year so far, the number of militants that have been killed in different encounters has crossed more than 140 already. While the security forces have been going ahead and carrying out these operations, the acts of militancy, however, also have not stopped. There have been several attacks and assassinations that have taken place at various places in Kashmir Valley. Security agencies have been saying that there are constant inputs of possibilities of attempts of infiltration bids, but at the same time are also mentioning that the local militancy and the recruitment has comparatively been lower.
The West Pakistan refugees, Valmiki Samaj and the Gorkha community living in Jammu and Kashmir faced discrimination, neglect and gross injustice for many decades. Their woes finally ended last year when the Modi government abrogated Article 370 and 35A. The members of these communities are now being issued domicile certificates.
"57-year-old Bholaram is happy. He proudly shows off his newly acquired domicile certificate to anyone who cares. He is one of the 4 lakh people in Jammu and Kashmir who have been standing in long queues to obtain this domicile certificate. Many of them have been residents of the region for decades, but were still considered outsiders.
बहुत खुशी है जी, चलो आज कुछ ना कुछ थोड़ी सुनवाई होगी ताकि बच्चे पढ़ लिख के आगे कुछ चल पड़ेंगे, कुछ कर सकेंगे, वरना हमारे बच्चे तो पढ़ने लिखने से भी बेजार हो गए हैं कि पढ़ाई करके करेंगे क्या. इतने पढ़ लिख के भी झाड़ू मारना को आगे है ही कुछ रास्ता नजर ही नहीं आ रहा.
The Valmiki community of Jammu are hopeful that they will finally be recognized as belonging to the region. Old-timers say that the Valmikis have been living here since 1957. and there are now third-generation Valmikis who know no other place to call home. Not being a domicile meant that the Valmikis, who traditionally are employed as sanitation workers, did not enjoy equal rights with their neighbors. They couldn't vote in the state elections, and they couldn't apply for any state government jobs other than as sanitation workers.
जो पीआरसी के नाम पे एक काला जो कानून हम पे लागू था, जिसकी वजह से हमारे बच्चे सिर्फ और सिर्फ नगर पालिका तक ही सीमित रह गए थे और झाड़ू लगाने, गंदगी उठाने का ही काम उनको सौंपा जाता था। और जो नए डोमिसाइल से अभी क्या है, जो हमारे बच्चे ग्रेजुएट, पोस्ट ग्रेजुएट और अंडर ग्रेजुएट थे, अब उनको सीधा सीधा उनके लिए जो डिपार्टमेंट्स के दरवाजे थे वो खुल चुके हैं।
Madan Lal's father came from Bihar and settled in Jammu decades ago. He today stands in queue with his son to get the domicile certificate that the abrogation of Article 370 and 35A has allowed him and his family to aspire for.
बहुत खुशी है सर, जब से धारा 370 टूटी है हमें काफी अधिकार मिल गए यहाँ से जो पहले नहीं थे, जैसे जमीन लेने के या बच्चों के नौकरी के लिए, हमें नौकरी के लिए अधिकार मिल गया।
The new rules came into force in May 2020 and they were applicable to people who have been living in J&K for 15 years or those who have studied in the Union Territory for 7 years or appeared in the Class 10 or Class 12 examinations from an educational institution in the region. These people, as well as their children, are now eligible for domicile certificate. So are the children of officials of central government, all India services, banks, public sector units, statutory bodies and central universities who have served in the Union Territory for at least 10 years. So far, 3,68,500 domicile certificates have been issued in Jammu and 79,300 in Kashmir. This also includes the ones issued to refugees of mostly Hindu and Sikh communities from West Pakistan.
ਉਹਦਾ ਵੀ ਫਾਇਦਾ ਹੀ ਹੈ
ਤੇ ਮੋਦੀ ਨੇ ਚੰਗਾ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਲਤ ਕੀਤਾ
ਨਹੀਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਚੰਗਾ ਕੀਤਾ ਅਸੀਂ ਬਥੇਰਾ ਕੇ ਛੱਡੀਏ ਦੇ ਪੱਖੇ ਨੇ ਜਿੱਥੋਂ ਹੋਈ ਆ 5 ਲੱਖ ਤੇ ਕੀ ਲਗਾਉਣ
On an average 40 to 45 applications we are receiving and we have created a single window system. We are receiving the applications, we are giving them the receipts and dates are being given to them and within 2 or 3 days we are issuing.
Before the revocation of Article 370 and 35A, spouses and children of women married to men from outside J&K were denied permanent resident rights. But the same did not apply to a man who married a woman from outside Jammu and Kashmir. His spouse and children were recognized as residents with all civil rights in the state. Abrogation of Article 370 and 35A bridged this gap.
Article 370 along with 35A was an atrocious article that deprived me of my citizenship rights as soon as I married a person from outside J&K. I'm speaking on behalf of hundreds and thousands of women of erstwhile J&K state, including Ladakh region. The state subject rights in J&K have been anti-women because the state subject certificate of a girl used to mention valid till her marriage only. And here I'm showing you my own state subject certificate that clearly mentions valid till her marriage only.
Abrogation of Article 370 and subsequent 35A, it's not just doing away with the article of the Constitution, but it has got much more. It has given us a new hope, a new lease of life, and most of all, it has given us our dignity, our identity back.
Domicile certificate has created a lot of confusion and a political battle has raged within the Union Territory. Most believe that Article 370 helped to preserve Jammu and Kashmir's identity and demographic balance. The laws introduced 8 months after the abolition of Article 370 have led to anxiety and fears in the valley that it could trigger floodgates for outsiders to settle in Jammu and Kashmir and alter the population characteristics forever.
you go for domicile, it is going to have, disastrous effects, because it is not only now who queues up. It's mostly who are already permanent residents because they have been asked to go for domicile.
So
maybe
the conspiracy theory of demographic changes.
That is right. I mean, see, it is just kind of a 100-headed serpent, because you have demographic change. It is maybe one of the fallouts. Then disenfranchisement. Then then disempowerment. Then making resources inaccessible to people.
We should leave this racist mindset at bay, and we should think on practical and pragmatic lines, that it has nothing to do with anything to do with the demographic change. So we are living in modern times, and modern time demands competition, competitiveness. So there is no wrong in it. One should come and participate. If we can buy a land, or if we can do job outside the country, why can't people from the other states of the India participate in our jobs? Let competition be there. With the competition, the society will grow. The union territory will grow.
नहीं, वैसे सुनने में तो आया है, ऐसे तो आमतौर यहाँ जो अफवाहें चल रही हैं कश्मीर डिवीज़न में, ये तो कह रहे हैं कि सिर्फ ये पॉपुलेशन बढ़ाने की कोशिश कर रही है। डोमिसाइल सर्टिफिकेट इसलिए बनाया कि बाहर के जो लोग जो 15 साल से जा रहे हैं उनके बनाएंगे सर्टिफिकेट, फिर यहाँ से उनकी यहाँ आबादी बढ़ाएंगे। बट मैं नहीं समझता हूँ वो तब होता जब रायशुमारी के लिए हिंदुस्तान तैयार होता, यहाँ पॉपुलेशन बढ़ेगी, फिर रायशुमारी होगी। तो हम उस स्टेज पर पहुंचे ही नहीं है, तो ना रायशुमारी का पहले ही मुद्दे खत्म हो गए, जो हमारा 370 वो खत्म हो गया, तो रायशुमारी की बात तो दूर है।
The past 1 year has been very difficult for Kashmiri people. Lockdowns followed by restriction after abrogation of Article 370, which has led to a political vacuum. This has also meant that bureaucracy has the real power. But in Kashmir, many people say they remain largely inaccessible.
A year ago, when Article 370 was abrogated from the erstwhile state of Jammu and Kashmir, Ladakh erupted in joy. Ladakhis celebrated the newfound status of a union territory for the region. But a year later, while most Ladakhis are still hoping to get an economic boost, preserving the land and its culture is emerging as a concern, as they feel that Ladakh has not been accorded the right to govern itself.
जम्मू कश्मीर को तो लेजिस्लेचर पावर फिर भी मिला, लेकिन लद्दाख को लेजिस्लेचर पावर नहीं दिया। वो ना देने की वजह से यहाँ पे अब लोगों में खदशा भी पैदा हो गया कि भाई हमारे लैंड का सिक्योरिटी क्या रहेगा, हमारे जॉब सिक्योरिटी रहेगा कि नहीं, हमारे कल्चर ट्रेडिशन ये सब कैसे हमारे हाथ में रहेगा कि नहीं। ये बहुत बड़ा डर अब लोगों की दिलो दिमाग में है।
एक तरफ से नौकरियां नहीं मिल रहे, बच्चे रो रहे, ऊपर से बाहर से लोगों को लाया जा रहा है, चाहे वो ड्राइवर के लिए हो, चाहे वो गार्डनर के लिए हो।
In this financial year, 30,757 crore rupees were allocated to the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, and 5,958 crore rupees were allocated to the Union Territory of Ladakh. In February, 7 projects were sanctioned to give a boost to tourism in the 2 Union Territories. Organizations that were part of Ladakh's struggle to get a separate UT status believe that it will take some more time for the region to get back on the track of development.
डेवलपमेंट का अगर अब देखा जाए तो डेवलपमेंट तो खास मतलब क्या हो सकता है, जैसे कि अक्टूबर से ही 2019 के अक्टूबर से ही इम्प्लीमेंटेशन हुआ था, फिर उसके बाद विंटर आ गया, फिर उसके बाद जब सीजन में काम शुरू होने वाला था तब ये कोविड पैंडेमिक का हुआ। हमने यूटी विथ लेजिस्लेचर मांगा था, मगर लेजिस्लेचर मिला नहीं, मगर काउंसिल रखने का डिसीजन हुआ। तो हम चाहते हैं कि इसी काउंसिल को ही एम्पावर किया जाए, इनको यहाँ पे कानून बनाने का, लद्दाख में रूल्स रेगुलेशंस बनाने का, लॉ बनाने का इनको पूरा वो पावर दिया जाए, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल सेफगार्ड दिया जाए।
In the freezing mountains of Kargil, the mood on abrogation of Article 370 is different from the main town of Leh.
तो कारगिल के अवाम को न चाहते हुए भी जबरदस्ती हमारे ऊपर यूनियन टेरिटरी थोप दी गई।
खासकर लद्दाख की आपको पता है एक मिनिस्क्यूल पॉपुलेशन है, बॉर्डर पे है, तो ये पॉपुलेशन आने वाले दिनों में अगर एक प्रोटेक्शन नहीं दिया सिमिलर टू आर्टिकल 370, तो ये पूरा जो एक कौम है ये बिल्कुल ही इसका आइडेंटिटी क्राइसिस हो जाएगा और ये खत्म होने का बहुत खदशात है।
हर चीज रातों रातों नहीं हो सकता है। आज डिस्ट्रिक्ट का बजट बढ़ा है, डिस्ट्रिक्ट का हर इम्पोर्टेंट हमारा प्रोजेक्ट बन रहा है, हॉस्पिटल बन रहा है, मेडिकल कॉलेज बन रहा है, यूनिवर्सिटी हो रहा है, तो जाहिर सा बात है एम्प्लॉयमेंट बढ़ना ही बढ़ना है।
Fundamental changes have been brought about in the functioning of the UT of Ladakh, and infrastructure projects are making inroads. But residents still remain cautious in welcoming the changes, as the question of identity and preserving culture looms large.